It is Sunday night. You're sitting in your car, staring at the front door of your house, just taking a moment before you head inside. That familiar weight is sitting in your chest. The engine is off, the street is quiet, but inside your head, you're already rehearsing tomorrow. The back-to-back meetings, the passive-aggressive emails, the deadline that never quite goes away. You know the feeling, that slight tightness when you hear a notification. And to cope, you open your banking app. You look at the balance. It's a safe number. You tell yourself, this is why I do it. I'm being responsible. I'm building a future. You look at that number like it's a shield. And I get it. I really do. But I want you to sit with me in this car for a second, because I want to ask you something that's been sitting with me since I read Die with Zero by Bill Perkins. What if that money in your account isn't just a reward? What if a large portion of it, not all of it, but a large portion, is actually a premium you're paying on an insurance policy against risks that may never actually happen? What if, somewhere along the way, you started over-insuring your life at the cost of your best years? Think about the math for a second. If you die with $100,000 in the bank and you earned an average of $25 an hour across your career, that's roughly 4,000 hours of your life building a safety net you never used. And I don't know. That number bothered me more than I expected. Now, look, having a safety net matters. That's not what I'm questioning. But there's a point of diminishing returns, and I don't think we talk about it enough. Those 4,000 hours are real life. Missed dinners, stress, time spent in a gray office when you didn't have to be. The times you told your family, sorry, I have to take this call. The cold sandwich eaten over a keyboard. We've been taught that the person with the most money at the end wins, so we save, we accumulate, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, we sacrifice things we can't get back just to watch a number go up. And if you die with a massive surplus, it might mean you traded your finite life energy, the one thing you genuinely cannot replenish, for a level of security that went further than you actually needed. That's not recklessness I'm describing. It's inefficiency, with the one resource you can't earn back. Welcome to the 9 to 5 Book Club, a survival guide for the daily grind. Today we're exploring a perspective that might push back on some things you thought you knew about money and security. We're going deep on Die with Zero. And I want to be upfront. This isn't for people who are struggling to meet basic needs. Survival comes first, full stop. But if your needs are covered and you still feel a quiet guilt every time you book a vacation, or if you hesitate before spending on something meaningful because you should be saving more, this might be worth sitting with. Because a lot of us have been conditioned to delay joy indefinitely. And today, we're going to look at why being hyper-responsible with your money might, in some cases, actually be a kind of irresponsibility toward your own life. We all know the ant and the grasshopper. The ant works all summer, survives the winter. The grasshopper plays and suffers. The lesson is usually, be the ant. Grind now, play later. And mostly, that's solid advice. But Perkins asks a quieter question. When does the ant actually get to play? If the ant spends his entire life piling up grain and then dies with a mountain of it left over, he wasn't just prepared. He was inefficient. And a lot of us, I think, have become over-ants. So focused on surviving the winter of old age, an age we might not even reach in good health, that we forget to actually live during the summer. Money, Perkins points out, is a renewable resource. You can earn more of it. You cannot earn more of being 30. You can't buy back the year your parents were still energetic enough to travel with you. Why do we keep grinding past the point it serves us? Mostly it's fear, and that's not irrational. What if the economy crashes? What if there's a medical emergency? These are real concerns, but they can quietly become an excuse to stay on the treadmill forever. And there's a different risk we almost never talk about. What if you spend your best years building a mountain of gold, and by the time you're ready to climb it, you're too tired to make the trip? I'll be honest, that question is uncomfortable because it doesn't have a clean answer. Money has what Perkins calls a utility curve. A dollar spent at 30 is often worth more, in real terms, in life terms, than a dollar spent at 80. At 30, you have the health and the appetite for things. You can backpack, you can stay up too late in a city you've never been to. At 80, even with millions, that money mostly buys comfort. A better hospital room, more expensive care. That's not a condemnation of having money late in life. It's just worth being honest about what it can and can't do. This is where Perkins introduces the idea of life energy. He wants you to see your paycheck not just as numbers, but as chunks of your actual life. Every time you stay late for a report that'll be forgotten in a week, you're exchanging something finite for something temporary. Now, I know compromise is real. Sometimes you take the extra task because your job security depends on it. That's practical, and it makes sense. But the problem is when it becomes autopilot. When you say, sure, I'll do it out of habit, without really weighing the cost. Is every meeting worth an hour of your time on Earth? Maybe some of them are, but probably not all of them. We optimize for money partly because it's measurable. The balance goes up. It feels like progress. But fulfillment is harder to track. How do you quantify a trip with friends before everyone moves to different cities? Or being present with your kids during the window when they still actually want you around? The spreadsheet is the administration of your life. It isn't the life itself. Perkins also introduces something he calls the memory dividend. When you invest in an experience, you're not just spending money, you're buying an asset that pays out for the rest of your life. Think about a trip you took years ago. On a rough day, you see a photo from it, and you feel something. That's a dividend. You're re-experiencing a version of that joy. And it compounds over time. If you take that trip at 25, you have maybe 60 years to collect those little payouts. If you wait until 70, the window is nearly closed. It's not a perfect model, but there's something in it. The experiences you have early carry more lifetime value, just because you have more life left to remember them. Let's think about someone like Elizabeth. Middle manager. Reliable, hardworking, the kind of person her team depends on. She rarely takes her full vacation because she doesn't want to fall behind. She tells herself, I'll travel when I retire. I just need to get to the next level. Elizabeth dies at 82 with $130,000 left in her accounts. Money that represents years of late nights and skipped dinners and calls taken on weekends. She had good intentions. She wanted to be safe. But somewhere along the way, she got stuck in accumulation mode. She forgot that money is a tool to buy time and experiences. She didn't fail at saving. She just missed the point where it was time to shift from saving to living. And honestly, that part is hard to sit with. Because from the outside, her life probably looked completely fine. And then there's Jason, Perkins's friend. In his 20s, basically broke. Takes out a loan to backpack through Europe for 3 months. And yeah, on paper, that sounds like a terrible idea. Debt. No safety net. No plan. People around him thought he was being irresponsible. Maybe even reckless. But decades later, 0 regrets. Because he caught something most people miss. He caught a window. His body can't handle hostels and thin mattresses now, even if he wanted to. That version of life is gone. And that's the thing. Life isn't an infinite hallway of open doors. It's more like a series of doors that close at different times. Some windows are physical. Some are about who else is still around, and healthy enough to share them with you. If you spend your whole life working for the key, you might get there and find the doors already locked. So practically speaking, what does Perkins actually suggest? One idea is what he calls time bucketing. Instead of a vague bucket list, break your life into 5-year windows and think about what actually belongs in each one. Hiking the Himalayas belongs in a different decade than a luxury cruise. Skydiving at 30 is a different experience than skydiving at 75. When you map it out, someday starts to feel more like, I probably have a limited window for this. It creates urgency, but not panic. He also reframes how we think about inheritance. Most people leave money when they die, which means kids inherit it in their 50s or 60s, when it often just folds into their own retirement savings. But if you gave smaller amounts when they were 25 or 30, when they're figuring out rent or taking a risk on something, that same money has a much higher real-world impact. Die with zero is less about spending everything and more about making your money count when it actually matters. To be clear, Perkins isn't telling you to be reckless. He's an engineer by training. The whole framework is about efficiency. The most inefficient outcome, in his view, is working for years and never using the results. Like buying gas for a car you never drive. If you actually calculate your net worth peak, the point where you have enough to sustain your lifestyle until you die, you might find you've already crossed it. If your job gives you real satisfaction, keep going. But if you're staying late purely out of financial anxiety, after you've already reached the point of enough, that might be a trade worth questioning. Here's a simple place to start. Draw a timeline to age 85 in 5-year chunks. Write down one experience for each window, something that only really works in that period of your life. Then figure out your actual enough number using a retirement calculator. Not just more, the real number. And start, maybe in small ways, to stop hoarding the good stuff for later. Open the nice bottle on a random Tuesday. Take a Friday afternoon for something that has nothing to do with work. Use your life energy while you still have it. Bill Perkins isn't telling you to stop caring about money. He's just pointing out that time is the one asset you genuinely cannot replace. The best way to live, his argument, and it's a reasonable one, is to use your resources together. Money, health, and time in proportion, while all three are still available to you. At 90, you probably won't be thinking about the nights you stayed late to fix a spreadsheet. You'll be thinking about the laughter, the risks that paid off, or didn't, the moments you chose to actually show up. The real risk isn't running out of money. It's realizing too late. You never really used your life. You only get one ride. It would be a shame to leave tickets in your pocket when it stops. This is 9 to 5 Book Club. See you at the top.